I think it's obviously a very, very deep question, and to presuppose at this stage the direction, obviously, between now and the Paris talks, I think is probably not a course of action that would be terribly valuable for us to take at this stage, at least from obviously the U.S. Negotiators' standpoint. It's very hard at this stage to know where, a number of issues will actually fall in the negotiations. I think everybody is coming, as Secretary Lavassa so eloquently put it, prepared to not miss this opportunity to secure the best possible deal for humanity at the Paris talks. The actual mechanisms by which we move that issue forward, I think, have yet to be determined. I like to, and we all talk about the path to Paris. I think it's an important conceptual point to perhaps reframe that, as I've heard it reframed a couple of times, as really looking at the path through Paris. Everybody looks at the INDCs as a very important issue important step, and that's absolutely accurate. It is, but it is not by any means a final step. We have a much steeper path to climb post-Paris. And so I think, whether that path includes at some stage carbon pricing mechanism, all of the potential of harmonizing national pricing structures. All of these questions have yet to be determined. But I think we have to keep our frame of reference as open as possible as we move forward.
Okay, thank you very much. If I could just follow up still with you, Mr. Morris, for a second on that, which is, I think it's clear that some sort of pure theoretical carbon price that is going to solve this problem for us is not on the cards. But that then leads us to the question of what are the sort of subsidiary pieces that come out of Paris. And part of the story clearly is going to be, as both the initial speakers said, is some sort of technology story. It's probably not sufficient, but it has to be part of the story. And technology and support for technology as well as for finance has been a key aspect of the negotiations. It's been a big demand for India. So maybe you can speak a little bit to what, from a US perspective, you see the prospects are for some sort of technology cooperation in the context of Paris, perhaps, but perhaps also beyond that as a specific mechanism. And then we'll come back to this idea of road to and road through Paris, because I think that's another important point to pick up on. But maybe first on the technology issues.
Sure. So technology as opposed to the finance elements.
Well, it's really up to you whether you want to take them separately or together.
Not a problem. I think, as I was alluding to earlier, I think it's very difficult to discuss at this point really where the technology negotiations will land in Paris. And so I honestly would, I think, reserve that for, my country's negotiators back in Washington to answer questions on that particular element. In terms of financing, I think it's clearly recognized by the U.S. and by the other donor countries that there is a serious issue there that needs to be addressed, and that efforts are underway to address. Now, arguments can be made about sufficiency, and they are made about sufficiency. But from 2010 to 2012, we worked very hard to secure $30 million. It was under the fast track commitment. The fast start pledge, I guess, we made at Copenhagen. We also are working very diligently on the $100 billion commitment. that, all of us are really pursuing, and that would be obviously public and private funding up through 2020. I would say that early indications are quite positive that we will be able to reach that amount. I think the UN and IPCC indicated that back in 2013, they were projecting that the public monies devoted to climate change issues actually were at a minimum of 35 billion and perhaps as high as 50 billion, and that was back in 2013. So I think 2020, reaching the 100 billion mark by that time, I think we are optimistic at this point that we'll be able to do that. We also, recently pledged 3 billion to the Green Climate Fund, and are working with others to, other donor countries as well, to get that money up to 10 billion. So, these are pieces. We are saying, billions of dollars. The reality is, again, as I said at the beginning, this is a very, very steep road, and these are efforts that are underway right now at this stage, given what the target is. So, as far as the cost of technology goes, while I'm far from an expert on the issue, I think I have heard folks who are much more knowledgeable on the subject, particularly of green energy technologies, note that actual IPR costs within that frame are relatively small compared to some of the other investment costs. The costs that you're putting into capital investments. A lot of the real expensive pieces of that are actually in material, transportation, maintenance issues, and so the really proliferation, the explosion, if you will, of green energy projects around the world, I think do speak to that being something that is not, I don't want to put this, that the IPR issues are not prohibitive to moving in those directions. So.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like there's sort of signs that finance might be mobilized. It may be more private than public, and the technology story, we really have to sort of wait to see what happens, what sort of that negotiation space coming out of Paris will look like. Am I summarizing this correctly, or? I think if you just start speaking.
Yeah, I would say the latter part is correct on the technology piece. On the financing piece, obviously, the mobilization of the private monies, I think, is a very key part of it. But we're not waiting for that mobilization. The public monies are also moving through, and the cooperative efforts are moving through as well.